Tonight, we step into the shadows of Valisport, a sprawling steampunk city of smoke, gears, and secrets. In these fog-choked streets, crime runs rampant, corruption eats at the heart of power, and revolution simmers just beneath the surface. But one detective, burdened with a past of scars and brass, stumbles upon a conspiracy far larger than murder. A secret society hidden for decades now moves to seize control of the city itself. As the gears of fate grind ever tighter, unlikely allies rise, an ingenious young inventor and a mysterious vigilante known only as the Brass Phantom. Together, they must face a force that threatens to erase free will and remake Valisport into a city of machines. This is a story of grit, gears, and resistance, a tale of loyalty, betrayal, and the fight for freedom. Welcome to the Brass Phantom, Veins of the Coil. If you enjoyed this journey into mystery and steampunk adventure, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more immersive bedtime stories and epic adventures. Settle in. Let the rain and thunder fade and drift into the world of brass veins. The storm came down in sheets over Valisport. Steam hissed from exhaust grates along the street, mixing with the rain to form a thick, choking mist. In the glow of the gas lamps, silhouettes warped and shimmered like ghosts lost in the fog. The hum of an airship rumbled overhead, deep, steady, its massive shadow drifting lazily across the rooftops. Detective Elric Wren stood beneath a dripping awning at the edge of East Gearlock Bridge. The collar of his oil-stained coat was pulled high, his hat slick with rain. His left arm, a finely tuned brass prosthetic from elbow to fingers, clicked quietly as he flipped open a copper lighter and lit a hand-rolled cigarette. Before him lay the body of Guildmaster Ferrix, slumped like a discarded marionette, steam still rising from the cauterized wound in his chest. The corpse was arranged, posed even, arms spread like a clock's hands at midnight. Etched into his chest was a symbol, a gear cut with mechanical precision, a single vertical line through its center. This wasn't robbery, Wren muttered. This was a message. A whirring lens clicked beside him. Inspector Nia Calder lowered her monocle, its internal magnifier folding shut with a hiss. Third Guildmaster in as many weeks, she said. Same symbol, same carving, no witnesses, no leads. Wren crouched beside the body, carefully prying a strip of parchment from the man's brass-plated hand. The ink was still wet from the rain. Only by breaking the machine can we become free. Cryptic. Calder's boots squelched on the wet stones as she stepped closer. You think it's connected to that old ghost story? Wren didn't answer. He stared over the bridge rail where steam rose from the river below like dragon's breath. Somewhere beneath all this machinery, Valisport still had a heartbeat, but it was growing faint. I've heard the name before, he said at last. The Coil. Calder frowned. Urban myth. Wren straightened, flicking ash into the rain. So were airships once, until someone built one. The morgue smelled of rust and formaldehyde. The mortician said nothing as Wren examined the body under the gas lamp glow. The symbol wasn't carved, it was cut, laser etched, too clean for a blade, too perfect for a human hand. Whoever did this, Wren murmured, had tools no ordinary thug could touch. Back in his flat above a gearworks shop in Smokestack Row, Wren studied the case files spread across his wall like an engineer's blueprint. All the victims were guild-aligned, all high-ranking. As he sipped his tea, laced with a heavy pour of rust whiskey, he traced the photo of the symbol with his brass fingers. A memory stirred. A name, half-remembered. From a case 10 years cold. The Coil. Whispers. Rumors. A society of machinists, rogue thinkers, and former city planners. Their creed, the machine must break to evolve. But the Coil had been wiped out, supposedly. A knock at the window startled him. He turned. A figure in dark blue hovered in the mist outside, cloak rippling, brass-lined goggles glowing like twin suns through the fog. Wren stepped forward, cautiously drawing his derringer. The figure raised a gloved hand and tapped a small brass plate on its chest. Detective Wren, you're being watched. They know you've seen the symbol. If you want to live, come with me. The figure vanished over the rooftop. Wren stared out into the fog. The cigarette burned low between his fingers. The Coil wasn't just a story. and Valisport was about to wake the ghosts it had buried. Chapter 2, Ghosts of the Machine. Detective Elric Wren didn't trust rooftops. They shifted, they groaned, and in Valisport, rooftops meant 3 things: rust, rats, and secrets. Tonight, it was all 3. Wren crept along the sloped slate tiles of a tenement in Gasket Hollow, following the dark-cloaked figure who had lured him here. The fog clung to the city like a sickness, illuminated only by the orange glow of coal lamps and the eerie blue pulse of power coils embedded in the spires. He could hear gears churning beneath the streets, the endless murmur of the city's lifeblood. The figure stopped atop a water tower and turned. Wren's pistol was already in hand. "No sudden moves," Wren said flatly, "or I light you up like a boiler tank." The figure raised both gloved hands. "If I meant to harm you, I wouldn't have warned you." "Who are you?" "I go by many names," the voice rasped through the speaker, "but most call me the Brass Phantom." Wren narrowed his eyes. "You were a ghost story." "So was the Coil," the Phantom said, "until tonight." They removed a leather pouch from beneath their coat and tossed it to Wren. Inside were photographs, blueprints, and a piece of metal engraved with the same gear symbol carved into the guildmaster's chest. "This was recovered from a smuggler's drop in the lower smoke wards," the Phantom explained. "One of 6 caches, each one tied to a different guild sector." "Why give this to me?" "Because someone inside the city council has been feeding them information. You're not on their payroll. You're a relic, a broken cog that slipped through the cracks." Wren scoffed. "You're damn right I am." The Phantom turned, cloak flaring as they descended a ladder into the alley. "Come," they said. "I want to show you something." The pair moved through the deep boilers, a labyrinth beneath the city where pipes snaked like serpents and steam burst from cracked vents in hissing bursts. The air was thick with the stink of molten grease and scorched coal. Here, society's outcasts lived shoulder to shoulder with failed automatons and rogue clockwork limbs twitching in barrels. Half the lights flickered out. The city guard never came here. The Phantom led Wren into a derelict foundry, repurposed into a subterranean command center. Mechanical lenses lined the walls. Dozens of maps and schematics were pinned to steel plates, all centered on a single phrase painted across the back wall. "Wren Protocol, All Saints date, 4 days from now." "What is this?" "What is this?" "Their endgame," said the Phantom. "A full system override of the city's central automation matrix. The Coil plans to sever all human control." Wren frowned. "You mean shut down the power?" "No," the Phantom replied. "Worse, they'll take it over. Airships, turrets, guard droids, every machine tied to the central network. And what happens to the Council? They'll be made obsolete." Wren glanced at a diagram showing dozens of automated sentries rerouted in formation around City Hall. "You think they'll do it?" "They've already begun." Back above ground, Wren returned to his flat with the dossier and locked the door tight. His brass arm jittered slightly as he adjusted the gas lamp, nerves finally catching up with him. He poured himself a double shot of iron-aged whiskey and stared at the gear symbol again. Whatever the Coil was planning, it wasn't just rebellion. It was reinvention. And Valisport had no idea it was about to be rewritten. Chapter 3, The Phantom's Warning. The next morning, the sun rose like a copper coin behind layers of coal smoke, casting a dull orange haze over Valisport's skyline. Gulls wheeled above the river, squawking at the hum of low-flying airships and the hiss of steam exhaust from the docks. Detective Elric Wren stood outside a nondescript workshop in Spanner Row, drumming his brass fingers on the hilt of his pistol. The name etched into the soot-darkened sign read, "L.K. and Keen Engine Works. Custom mechanics. Discreet repairs. Explosions optional." He knocked twice. Something exploded inside. After a brief pause, the door swung open. A young woman with wild copper hair and an oil-streaked apron stood there, goggles perched crookedly on her forehead. A small mechanical cat with mismatched legs scurried around her boots, hissing at Wren. "Wren," she beamed. "You're still alive. Huh. Owe me 5 thallions." "Laura Keene," he said, stepping inside. "Still making things that go boom?" only when I want them to, which is often. The workshop was a maze of cables, gears, spare prosthetic limbs, and glowing coils that hummed with latent energy. A prototype exosuit stood in the corner like a night of rust, while a wall-sized schematic mapped out the Valisport central relay grid in fine ink. "I need your help, Laura," Wren said. "You ever heard of something called the Wren Protocol?" She paused, the grin fading. "Not from anyone who didn't end up missing. I need to know how it works, and how we can stop it." By midday, Laura had cleared a table and pinned the Phantom's blueprints under a heavy wrench. "They're using signal relays," she said, pointing at red-marked nodes along the schematic. "These towers were built after the Skyrail expansion, supposed to streamline energy distribution and drone coordination, but..." She pulled a smaller diagram from a drawer. "With a little firmware rewrite, you can control everything they touch. City lights, guard units, automated gates, even prosthetics if they're connected." Wren blinked. "Wait, mechanical limbs?" She tapped her temple. "My old professor had a neural-linked prosthetic once. Got hacked by accident during a signal test. He tried to drink a beaker of acid, thought it was tea." Wren looked down at his brass arm. For the first time in years, it felt alien. "If they activate this protocol," he said slowly, "they could shut the city down from the inside." Laura nodded grimly. "No riots, no resistance, just a city that obeys." That night, Laura and Wren met with the brass Phantom again, this time in an abandoned signal relay tower in the Windcliff sector. "This place was shut down 2 years ago," the Phantom explained, "but the Coil repurposed it, embedded new code into the Matrix." Wren looked over the dusty panels, reading the glowing runes in their cold, calculated precision. "They're not just planning to take over the city," he said. "They're already testing it." Suddenly, a series of gears whirred to life behind them. The lights in the tower flickered. A dormant automaton in the corner jolted upright, its eyes glowing red. Laura's cat shrieked. "Down!" Wren yelled, diving as the machine's arm extended into a blade. The Phantom moved fast, launching a magnetic pulse that fried the automaton's core. Sparks showered the floor. "It's a failsafe," the Phantom said, breathing heavily. "They don't want anyone in here." Wren hauled himself up. "We're out of time." The three stood in the fading light of the relay's control room, gears still spinning somewhere deep in the walls. Wren's voice was quiet. "We either stop them by All Saints' Night, or Valisport becomes a city of machines." Chapter 4. Towers and Traders. 3 days to All Saints' Night. Rain lashed against the cracked windows of a rickety cable tram as it clattered through the upper skylinks, high above Valisport's smog-choked alleys. Elric Wren sat near the back, gripping the worn leather strap of his shoulder holster. Laura Keene sat opposite him, legs bouncing nervously. The Phantom stood silently, holding a sealing pipe like a statue. Below them, the gears of the city turned. "Next tower's in Sector 7F, right?" Wren asked. Laura nodded. "Abandoned signal relay beneath the old Guild of Inventors annex, but we won't get in without help." "Who's our in?" Laura hesitated. "My old mentor, Professor Darnell Routh. He taught me everything I know about signal logic before he disappeared 2 years ago." Wren raised an eyebrow. "Disappeared?" "Word was he took a government contract, private research, but he's been off the map ever since. I've only just managed to trace him to the annex." The tram hissed to a halt. "Let's hope he still recognizes you," the Phantom said, "or we'll have more than locked doors to deal with." The annex was a crumbling structure covered in ivy and soot. Its front gates, once decorated with gold-capped gears, now hung askew. The interior was pitch dark, except for the cold hum of active machinery below. They descended metal stairwells until they reached the basement, where the smell of burnt ozone and inked parchment lingered in the air. "Professor?" Laura called, her voice echoing. A soft, wheezing sound answered. Then from the shadows stepped Darnell Routh, his face gaunt, his right eye now replaced with a glowing optic lens. Tubes ran down his neck and into a brass harness on his chest. His fingers were skeletal, mechanical digits with exposed servos. "Laura," he said in a voice filtered through a vocal coil, "you should not have come." You're alive, she breathed. I thought. You thought I'd been taken. I wasn't. I joined. Wren's pistol was out in a flash. He's one of them. Routh raised a frail hand. I was dying. The council offered me scraps. The Coil offered salvation. They gave me purpose, vision, a city freed from corruption. They're enslaving it, Laura snapped. You taught me better than this. They are correcting what we failed to protect. You can't stop it. He stepped aside to reveal a massive uplink console, pulsing with red light. This tower is already live. The Wren has begun. Wren lunged forward, but too late. The screens lit up with data feeds. District drones shifting positions, energy flow rerouted, entire city blocks going dark. The system was activating. Laura raced to the console, frantically yanking wires and slamming keys. I can slow it down, she yelled. Maybe corrupt part of the relay. The Phantom drew a coil blade and blocked the exit. Keep them off her. Routh lunged, wielding a mechanical claw with shocking speed for a man so frail. Wren intercepted him, slamming his brass fist into the professor's chest rig. Sparks flew. Routh collapsed, gasping. You'll regret this. The uplink exploded in a shower of light. Laura screamed as the shockwave flung her across the room. Wren shielded her with his body as machinery collapsed around them. When the smoke cleared, the uplink was destroyed, but not before the damage had been done. Wren helped Laura to her feet. You all right? She wiped blood from her lip. For now. The Phantom emerged from the haze. 1 tower down, 4 more to go. Wren looked down at Routh's broken body. They've already started. Chapter 5, Whispers in the Wires. 2 days to All Saints' Night. The team had regrouped in a decommissioned airship hangar in the Rustway docks, far from the eyes of the city's central surveillance towers. The cavernous building groaned under its own weight, lined with rusted walkways, broken chains, and the skeletal remains of dirigibles that would never fly again. Elric Wren sat on a crate, rewrapping the exposed wiring in his brass arm. Laura Keene worked furiously on a portable decryptor at a nearby table, while the brass Phantom stood in the shadows, scanning through intercepted transmissions with a static scrambled earpiece. The relay in the inventor's annex had been only the beginning. We slowed the rend, Laura muttered, tightening a wire coil, but we didn't stop it. The data from the annex confirms the Coil has fallback towers ready to go, some mobile. Like airship relays? Wren asked. Laura nodded. Or even embedded ones, inside people. That made Wren sit up. The Phantoms stepped forward, their voice low. We intercepted something else. There's a traitor in the Guild of Inventors feeding the Coil real-time updates. Another one? Wren asked. Someone high up, the Phantom confirmed. Name's encrypted, but there's a scheduled meeting tonight in Skylatch Square. A drop point. We need to intercept whoever shows. Once a proud hub for artisan tinkers and market stall engineers, Skylatch had fallen into disrepair. Half the lights were out. Scavenger drones buzzed overhead like mechanical hornets. Wren and the Phantom waited in a rooftop alcove, watching the square below. At precisely 11 o'clock, a cloaked figure emerged from the shadows and dropped a satchel beneath a bronze statue of the first city architect. Wren leapt down, landing hard, pistol drawn. Don't move. The figure froze, and then slowly turned. Wren's eyes narrowed. It was Inspector Nia Calder. The hell are you doing here? He demanded. I should ask you the same, she said, lips pressed tight. You're chasing myths while the city crumbles. Answer the question. I came for the same satchel you did, she said, stepping forward. You're not the only one with leads on the Coil. Wren holstered his weapon slowly. You're not one of them, he said, but you know someone who is. She looked down. My supervisor, Commissioner Vale, he's been shielding shipments, approving transfers, and locking investigation records. I didn't have proof. Until this. She picked up the satchel and opened it, revealing a crystal data node etched with glowing lines of encrypted Coil code. They're planning to shift protocols through the central Skyrail hub, Calder said. If they do, the Coil won't need towers anymore. They'll be able to control any system across the entire rail network. Back at the hangar, the team gathered around the decryptor as Laura extracted files from the data node. The room was tense. The plans were worse than expected. The Coil wasn't just taking the city, they were replacing its leadership entirely. A list of assassination targets filled the screen. Names both familiar and feared, guildmasters, counselors, strict mayors, including Calder herself. They're eliminating opposition, she said, visibly shaken. And there's something else, Laura said. According to this, their leader isn't just pulling strings. He is the network. What? Wren asked. The data points to someone called Prime Cog, but there's a real name hidden in the metadata. She paused. Elric, it's Thaddeus Greer. Wren nearly dropped his flask. Greer's dead, died in an airship crash 5 years ago. No, the Phantom said quietly. He ascended. Everyone turned. The Phantom stepped into the lamplight, voice almost reverent. I saw him once, in a dream. A man half steel, half spark, wired into the central cog. Immortal. Terrifying. He wasn't trying to survive the crash. He was using it as cover. Wren looked between them. If Greer was alive and leading the Coil, then the city wasn't just at risk. It was already lost. Chapter 6. Into the heart of the Coil. 36 hours to All Saints' Night. The city was holding its breath. Airships hovered like vultures above the skyline, their shadows slicing through the mist that clung to Valisport's rusted towers. Street lamps flickered erratically, as if uncertain whether to obey the rising power surges. Automated clockwork sentries stood motionless at intersections, their heads occasionally twitching toward unseen signals. Deep beneath the city, past the last mapped sewer line, beyond the vault doors that once sealed off the old metro core, a corridor pulsed with red light. The walls were lined with copper veins. Data cables pulsed like arteries. Every few meters, a wall-mounted lens tracked movement, its iris whirring. Wren had seen many things in his time, murders, conspiracies, even riots sparked by faulty automation, but nothing like this. The Phantom moved in silence ahead of him. Laura Keene trailed behind, guiding them by the decrypted blueprints projected on her wristband. This is where the central cog was relocated after the Greer crash, she whispered. Off the books, off the grid. I thought the core was destroyed, Wren muttered. Destroyed? The Phantom said. No, buried. Like everything else this city wants to forget. They reached a massive vault door, sealed with 3 concentric rings that rotated like the tumblers of a city-sized lock. At its center, etched in shining brass, were the words, Prime Cog access only. Laura pulled a brass spike from her satchel, an experimental override device. This'll give us 5 minutes of partial access. Then we're locked in, or locked out. She jammed it in. Sparks flew. The rings began to spin. The vault opened with a hiss, revealing a chamber unlike anything they'd ever seen. It was a cathedral of machinery. Giant gears turned above their heads, powered by glowing cores and magnetic fields. Dozens of suspended drones hovered silently, blinking blue. In the center, atop a raised dais of copper and chrome, stood a cylindrical tank of fluid, filled with blinking lights, cables, and something moving inside. A humanoid figure, half flesh, half machine, wires where there should be veins, gears in place of a ribcage, a cold iron mask covered the face. A voice echoed through the chamber. Welcome to progress. The figure floated upright. I am Prime Cog, but you may call me Greer. Wren's blood ran cold. I saw you die, Wren said, stepping forward. You saw what I wanted you to see, the voice replied. The crash was necessary. An outdated man died, and from the wreckage, I was born. You did this to yourself? Why not, Greer asked. I was a man bound by corruption, but the machine is pure, efficient, endlessly loyal. You enslaved a city. I saved it. Greer extended an arm. The air around the team shimmered as drones powered up. The Coil is not my army. It is my limb, my eye, my will extended. Laura's voice trembled. You're trying to overwrite humanity. I am evolving it. Without warning, a pulse of energy surged through the chamber. Wren's brass arm spasmed, locking in place. Laura's tools shorted out. Even the Phantom stumbled as their suits struggled to resist the wave. You see? Greer's voice was cold satisfaction. Your tools are mine, your resistance futile. But then the Phantom rose and removed their mask. Underneath was a scarred face, one Wren had never seen before, but Laura gasped to recognize. Myra? The woman nodded grimly. Thaddeus Greer was my father. Chaos erupted. The Phantom, Myra Greer, hurled a blinding flash device that disrupted the drone field. Wren broke free of the magnetic lock just in time to dive behind a gear housing. Laura scrambled toward the control console, shouting telemetry readings as Greer's containment tank cracked open. The machine man stepped out, fully integrated, eyes glowing like furnace coals. Wren fired. The bullets sparked off Greer's alloyed chest. I tried to bring you into the new world, Greer said, striding forward, but some gears just refused to turn. Then it's time to smash the damn machine, Wren growled. Chapter 7, All Saints' Night. Night falls. All Saints' Night begins. Valisport was burning, not with flame, but with light, sound, and machine. The skies roared as patrol airships moved in rigid, synchronized grids, each trailing scanner lights over the alleys. Clockwork sentries marched through the districts, their eyes pulsing with a cold blue hue. Street lamps blinked in mechanical rhythm. A siren tone echoed every half hour, blaring from public towers like the heartbeat of a waking god. It had begun. The Wren protocol was no longer a plan. It was active. Atop a rooftop in Daggerfell District, Wren surveyed the chaos with a spyglass. Explosions flickered near the guild square. Power was being redirected. Rail cars locked in place, people corralled by their own security systems. Laura was beside him, fingers shaking as she adjusted her signal disruptor pack. The old version had failed in the core. This one, unstable, untested, but stronger. Myra, no longer the masked Phantom but a determined rebel in her own right, adjusted the shoulder plates of her modded cloak. Beneath it, she wore a reinforced vest of pulse-resistant plating, stitched together from salvaged Coil tech. The override signal is bouncing between towers now, Laura said. I can jam 2 or 3 of them, but we'll need to manually sever the uplink. And where's that now? Wren asked. Clockspire Tower, Myra answered. Greer moved the backup core there days ago. Of course, Valisport's oldest structure, the city's heart. The march to Clockspire. They moved fast, ducking patrols and overriding gate locks. Calder met them at a weapons drop on Gearhart Street, handing Wren an upgraded arc-shot pistol. I can cover the north entrance, she said, but the place will be crawling with Coil loyalists. They're not just machines anymore. They're zealots, Myra added. They've seen Greer. They believe. Wren glanced at the city skyline, the tower rising like a metal obelisk among flame and fog. Then let's give them a reason to lose faith. They reached the Clockspire's base near midnight. Smoke poured from nearby rooftops. A crowd had gathered, angry civilians and rogue engineers forming a resistance line. Makeshift barricades were aflame. Overhead, Coil drones dropped tear gas and sonic blasters. Looks like we're not the only ones fighting back, Laura said. Good, said Wren, cocking his pistol. Let's give them a victory to fight for. Inside the tower, the ascent was brutal. Dozens of flightless automata skittered down the spiral staircases, screeching. Laura overloaded their sensors with a pulse beacon, while Wren used his arm like a battering ram, knocking machines down the shaft. On the 30th floor, they found the uplink node. It was a humming column of polished brass, ringed with rotating coils and a single glowing control sphere at its core. Greer's voice echoed from it like a sermon. Tonight, Valisport becomes one, machine and man, indivisible, eternal. Myra approached the sphere. I'll plug in the scrambler, Laura whispered, but someone needs to hold off the failsafe system. Wren nodded. I'll play the decoy. As Laura connected the disruptor, the entire tower shook. Greer's backup systems activated. Weaponized drones and wall-mounted turrets sprang to life. Wren charged forward, dodging arc fire, his brass arm shielding him from a barrage. He shot out the targeting lenses of 2 turrets before diving behind a support beam. Myra took to the air, her cloak flaring out into a short-burst glider powered by compressed steam jets. She sliced through cables with her bladed boots, disabling a backup relay node. Laura screamed as the disruptor began to overheat. It's now or never. Myra reached the core and jammed a copper shard into the override port. A high-pitched whine rose, then silence. All across the city, the signal died. Lights flickered out, drones dropped midair, guards froze in place. The machine had gone silent. The tower groaned. Wren looked up as the core cracked, releasing a pulse of light that knocked him off his feet. The uplink was gone, but so was the power keeping the building stable. The floor beneath them shuddered, and then collapsed. Chapter 8, The Clockspire Showdown. Seconds after collapse, Wren awoke to the sound of groaning metal. Debris rained down in the dark. The core chamber of Clockspire Tower had split open like a rotten boiler. He could barely see through the dust and rising steam, but one thing was clear: Greer was still alive. Half buried under collapsed machinery, Wren rolled to his side and coughed blood. His mechanical arm sparked with each twitch of his fingers. Somewhere in the chaos, Laura cried out. "Myra! Wren! I'm here!" Wren croaked. "Don't move." A cold light cut through the haze. Greer stood tall and terrible at the far end of the broken floor, cables still snaking out of his spine like mechanical roots. One eye was human, barely, and the other glowed molten gold. "You think killing the signal stopped the machine?" Greer said, his voice crackling through the smoke. "I am the machine." Wren stumbled to his feet, blood dripping from his temple. Laura dragged herself up beside him, her disruptor flickering, nearly spent. From the rafters above, Myra leapt down, cloak torn, boots sparking. "You've hurt this city long enough," she snarled. "I rebuilt this city," Greer bellowed, stepping forward with the weight of a god. "I gave it order, purpose, and what did you do? Filled it with chaos and choice." Myra drew her twin arc blades. "We gave it hope." The battle began. Greer surged forward like a living freight train, swinging his steel arm with terrifying force. Wren dodged narrowly, firing his arc shot into exposed coils. Sparks erupted, but Greer didn't slow. Laura clambered up the wreckage, firing her pulse tool into the ceiling where overloaded steam pipes still hissed. One exploded, showering Greer in vapor, but he barely flinched. Myra ducked low and slashed upward with both blades, severing the feed tubes in his lower back. Greer screamed in static fury and flung her across the chamber. "You cannot kill the future," he roared. "I don't need to," Wren said, raising his arm. "I just need to disconnect it." He threw himself at the central terminal, a mess of wires, gears, and still blinking override ports. Using his brass arm as a conductor, Wren plunged it into the open node. The surge nearly stopped his heart. He gritted his teeth as volts shot through his spine, but the backup cores began to flicker. Laura, through tears, reached the control console and activated the emergency purge. One by one, the tower's uplink conduits exploded. Greer staggered, circuits flashing in panic, his limbs spasmed, power draining fast. "No!" Wren collapsed to one knee, smoke rising from his chest plate. Greer stumbled forward. "I'll rebuild it all." Myra drove a gear blade into his heart. Not mechanical, not steel. A real gear from her late mother's workshop, handmade. Greer's light went out. Later, as dawn broke over Valisport, the silence was strange. Airships hovered aimlessly, sentries stood dormant, and across the city, people stepped cautiously from their homes, blinking in the gray light of an uncertain future. Wren sat on the Clockspire's broken edge, watching steam rise from the streets below. His coat was torn, his arm twitched, but his eyes were clear. Laura sat beside him, holding a cup of bitter tea brewed over a cracked flame vent. She didn't speak, she just was, like the city, broken but standing. And Myra? Gone again, vanished like a shadow. Some said she died in the final blast, others swore they saw her silhouette on the rooftops, watching. Wren didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in heroes. Chapter 9, Ashes and Cogs. 2 days after the fall. The fires had finally gone out. Smoke still curled from the broken crown of Clockspire Tower, but the skies above Valisport were blue for the first time in years. Not from the absence of smog, but from the absence of control. Greer's network was dead. The Wren protocol was dismantled. The Coil scattered. And yet, the city didn't feel whole. Detective Elric Wren limped down the stairs of Coleridge Hall, using his new arm as a crutch. Laura's modifications had saved it from frying completely, but it still jittered when he got near exposed wiring. He reached the main square just as a press conference was breaking up. The newly formed Civic Assembly, made up of guildmasters, independent engineers, and citizen delegates, had just voted to dissolve the council entirely. No more central authority, no more cog-controlled governance. Wren was no politician, but he knew enough to see this was only the start of another fight. Still, it felt better than silence. Laura was waiting for him at a bench, her goggles pushed up into her wild red hair and a newspaper folded in her lap. "Heroic engineers save city," she quoted with a smirk. "Wren, they actually used the word heroic for me. Can you believe that? You did build the disruptor that shut down the Coil." "Yeah, but only after I built the first one that almost got us all killed." Wren chuckled, then grimaced. "Don't laugh. Ribs still healing." She handed him the paper. Below the fold, a grainy image showed the ruins of Clockspire Tower. Standing among the debris were several citizens helping clear wreckage, and one cloaked figure walking away in the background. No face, no confirmation, but unmistakable. "Think she's really gone?" Laura asked. Wren was quiet a long time. Then, "I think she's doing what she's always done." "Watching?" He nodded. "Protecting." That night, Wren returned to his flat above the old gear shop in Smokestack Row. The city sounded different now. Still loud, the hiss of steam, the clatter of trains, the hum of generators, but it wasn't oppressive. It was alive. He poured a glass of bitter tonic and leaned on the windowsill, looking out at the skyline. Gas lamps flickered. An airship passed overhead, unarmed, peaceful. And then, just for a moment, a shadow moved across a rooftop. A figure in a cloak outlined by moonlight paused to look down at the street, then vanished. Wren smiled to himself. The machine might still turn, but this time, someone was watching the gears. Chapter 10, The Phantom's Shadow. Valisport is recovering. The city is no longer bound by the Coil's grip, but the scars remain, both in infrastructure and memory. Elric Wren and Laura Keene sit in quiet reflection at a cafe in Smokestack Row, their conversation sparse but meaningful. Wren's new mechanical arm twitches with unfamiliar ease. Laura nurses a cocktail that fizzes with low-grade energy pulses. Neither says it out loud, but they both feel the absence of Myra Greer, the brass phantom. No one's seen her since the collapse of Clockspire Tower. But across the city, rumors begin to stir of a cloaked figure appearing where corruption festers, stopping acts of sabotage or saving lives without recognition. Some say she's a myth. Others say she became the machine she once fought. "You can't kill the machine," the final line reads. "But maybe you can teach it to feel." Thank you for joining us in the world of Valisport. The gears have turned, the storm has passed, and for now, the city sleeps. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these tales alive and helps new ones take shape. There are many more stories waiting in the shadows, of mystery, of courage, and of dreams made of steel and smoke. So settle back, let the sound of rain and thunder wash over you and drift into the night.